It's a delight to have you here today. I'm going to be taking you through how to write and publish a good book. Keep your microphones muted. Be ready to ask questions. I'm going to answer questions. So what we're going to do is I'll do a lecture and then lecture sounds too formal. I'll take you through some slides and teach you a bit, and then we'll have an opportunity to ask questions. I hope that's fine. Awesome. So, who am I? I am a lover of God. I am a daughter, sister, wife, and friend. I'm married to Mr. Ronald Suhirwe. I'm a creative entrepreneur. I love creativity in all its forms, in all its forms. And one of the things that I do is I write and edit. And I'm also an author of a book titled Thriving Creatives. It's a creative entrepreneur's guide. And it's a delight for me today to help creatives. If you didn't know, today you've officially stepped into the seat of being a creative, because you're going to write and publish a book. Yeah, that's if you're not doing any other creative venture in your life. But henceforth, you have become a creative because you're going to write and publish a book. So we're going to talk about how to write and publish a good book. Yeah, because I'm sure that's what all of you want to do. You want to write and publish a good book and not just any book. Okay. So let's start with, why do we write? Yeah, there are very many reasons to write. You can write for information purposes. You can write to entertain. A lot of fiction novels are written for the purpose of entertaining, but also for the purpose of teaching, perhaps some lesson. Perhaps there's no actual lesson, but it's just for entertainment purposes. Perhaps it's to invite you to reflect on the future. Perhaps it's to invite you to reflect on a particular topic that you're passionate about. There could be very many reasons, but there's so many reasons for writing. That said, what's your personal reason for writing? Yeah. And that's a thing that I would like you to think about. What's your personal reason for writing, and how can you channel that through your book? If at any point you can't hear me well, just you can chat, put a comment, and I will do something about it. But I trust that you can all hear me. So imagine influencing beyond time and space. Imagine influencing beyond time and space. Why do I say beyond time? Beyond time, because your book will outlive you. Yeah? If you do a good book and you actually write something that's relevant to people, it will outlive you. And so you have the ability to write something that will remain beyond your lifespan, and that will remain for posterity, for other people. And you also have an opportunity to go beyond space. So you have an opportunity to go beyond your geographical location and to speak to people in different countries, speak to people in different places, in different time zones, And so you're literally going beyond time and space and making something that's relevant to many people. And that's the joint reason that we have for writing and for publishing books. So one of my favorite writers, Maya Angelou, she rests with God. She wrote very many books. You see, she rests with God, and yet I still love her literature. I have her books. She wrote some phenomenal books in her lifetime. And, one of her poems has taken me through certain seasons as a young woman trying to discover my worth. And it's amazing that someone who wrote about her own journey, how her own perception of her image at that particular time, and wrote it really for herself in that moment, could write something so powerful, because she chose to publish it and share it with the world. So many women around the world could identify with what she wrote, and it took them, it literally took and still takes, them out of dark places, to places of light and appreciation of self. So what will you write about? Okay, what will you write about? I suggest that you think about your purpose. Okay, think about purpose. Think about something that is at your core. Why do I talk about purpose? Because you see, if you write within an area of your purpose, you're most likely going to be proud of your book next year, the year after, the year after, and the year after. It's going to be something that you're genuinely proud of for a long time. While you might have different passions and you might have different interests, if you don't anchor what you're writing in a clear purpose or in your clear purpose, then, you say, let me give an example. I am interested in so many different things. Okay. I love the arts, but I'm not necessarily as interested in dancing as I am, maybe say, in writing. Yeah, I'm not invested in dancing. So I can't write a book about dancing. So imagine that I'm in a phase right now, and yet I watch a lot of dance shows because they're entertaining. So imagine I'm in a phase right now where I'm really consuming a lot of dance shows. And I start to think to myself, I could write about this. Yes, I could, but to what end? I'm not a dancer. No one will ever know me as a dancer. 5 years from now, it won't even be relevant. Yes, I could probably contribute to the body of knowledge in the world of dancing, but I have no authority, no aim, no purpose in that area. And so it will fall flat, and it will be inauthentic. I won't have an audience for it. And so that's a bad thing to write about. But writing about something like thriving creatives, which is something I'm very passionate about, that's something that was relevant for me because, for the rest of my life, I'm going to be working with creatives. And I'm very passionate about working with creatives. And so that was something that was within my purpose. What problems do you want to solve? Okay, what problems do you want to solve in the world? Are they spiritual problems? What kind of spiritual problems do you want to solve? Do you want to solve problems for women? What kind of problems do you want to solve? And for what age bracket? We're going to talk about that some more a bit later. So what impact do you want to have long term? Yeah. And what will matter to you many years from now? Remember my dancing example? What will matter to you many years from now? I'm sure and certain that creatives will matter to me many years from now because they've mattered to me many years before, right? So I know that will, no matter what else I get interested in, I know that that's going to be with me, for the long haul. What are you passionate about? Like I said, passion should be taken with purpose, because you can't say you're passionate about football. Yes, I know you're passionate about football. You might even have a prominent team. You're very excited about that prominent team. But really, truly, no one knows you in the world of football, not as a commentator, not as a, and so you have no influence in that area. And so you can't command any lasting impact, right? What do you want to tell people about? What stories do you enjoy narrating? This week I walked into Aristoc and, I love books. And so I just felt at home there. I after looking for the book that I wanted, I just stayed a little longer and just walked through the aisles, checking out the new books, checking out, and checking out the different titles. But I noticed that I was only really focusing on certain areas, right, of the bookshop. So I want you to imagine that you walk into a restock. Which section do you walk to first? That's most probably, that's most probably the genre within which you should be writing. Yeah. If you think about that, if you walk into a restock, what's the section that you go to first? Do you go to the cooking section? Do you go to the interior design section? Do you go to the accounting section? You know, the stories that you enjoy from other people, the books that you enjoy from other people are most probably the kind of book that you want to write as well. Yeah. So that's a really good indication. And if you're lost in terms of, choice, I would suggest you just do that simple exercise, walk into a restock and just walk and find out what genres you gravitate towards. Research how are the books in those genres structured. Yeah, we're going to talk about genre. So these are some people that wrote books that are within their purpose. Yeah, Seth Godin, marketing. John C. Maxwell, the person that we read a lot from. He writes about leadership any day, every day, laws of leadership, laws of teamwork, all of that is within leadership. Yeah. So every single thing that he writes about sort of is viewed within that lens of leadership. Yeah. So an example, Ethics 101. He's writing about Ethics 101, but he's not writing about it for just anybody, but for leaders and for people within the workplace. And Apostle Moses Mukisa, his books are within his line of purpose. They're within the things that he's passionate about, right? If you notice, he's passionate about ministry, about reaching the lost world, about financial prosperity and people getting out of poverty. And so he writes about those things, yeah? And then I also put my book there, Thriving Creatives, because that's the thing I'm passionate about. So what will you write about is the question, yeah? What will you write about? Yeah? I would like you to just take a minute and write down a few topics, yeah? If you have a phone, notebook, just write down a few topics that you could consider. You can also ask a question related to that if you want to. Please be reminded that this call is being recorded. So if you feel like your topic is top secret, you may not want to share it, but go ahead and share it, because you see, even if 5 people are writing about baking, you'll all write about it differently, yeah? Because you have different experiences, you have different things that you're passionate about in line with that, even if it's the same topic. Brainstorm some topics, write them down, then choose a main topic or message. That is very, 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 very critical. You need to choose a main topic or message. Or main theme, okay? You have to, this is very, 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 very key, yeah? You can't write about women empowerment, marriage, cooking, I don't know, all of those things in one book just because you as a person, you're passionate about all these things. Many writers fall into the trap of feeling like they should write everything that they're interested in because now they've finally gotten a chance to write a book. My advice would be, don't view this as your only book, right? If you don't view this as your only book that you will ever write in life, it frees you up to simply write something that is targeted and relevant to the market. Yeah, because some people just want to write every single thing, all their life in the book. Yes, your life examples will be used in the book, but yeah, you really, really need to choose a targeted theme. I'm spending a bit of time here because I know how critical this is, and I've seen from books in the past years how people lose sight of having a main message, and it's so key. Yeah, I was having a conversation with someone last week, and I told her, it's not that we are restricting what you're writing about, but we want to know what lens you're viewing everything through. Yeah, for multi-potentialites like myself, it can be hard to choose just one topic. Okay, but even in that situation, you need to choose your main message and you need to choose your main theme. Yes, you might be talking about women empowerment and cooking and, you know, so many other, and marriage, yeah, but what's the lens? Maybe the thing that ties all these three is the lens through which you're viewing it, the theme. So what's the main theme? And if that, and can that theme tie everything together in a way that's cohesive and that communicates to your audience? That's very, very critical. All right, let's move on. Now on, it has to be relevant now and in the future. We've talked about that. And you need to research the genre within which your book falls. That will help you a lot to understand how to write your book, okay? How to write your book. Miriam, I've seen your question in the chat. Thank you. I'm going to answer it. So now that we are on genres, let me just take a moment to answer your question. A memoir is, or a memoir is falls within the one of the genres. Okay. Actually, let me address this question right after talking about the different types of genres. So we have two main categories. Okay, a genre is a type of category, but we have two main parent categories of books. We have fiction and non-fiction, and then within those two main categories, we have different further categorizations or different genres within those. Yeah. So fiction talks about imaginary events and people. Now, fiction could actually paint a real life scenario, just that it's imaginary. So I could write a book about a girl named Jane who lived in Kamocha and got a job as an architect. That's a real life scenario, right? There could actually literally be a girl named Jane in Kamocha who got a job as an architect. But it's not, I'm imagining that there is a girl in Kamocha, you know. So because I'm painting a fictional, non-existent story, it falls within fiction. And yet it's a real life render. Okay? But that's still fiction. And then non-fiction is real life events and people, meaning these people actually existed. They existed within a specific time and place, and these stories are real. Okay? Now, what genre does your book fall in? You need to research and find out. So each of you need to do your fair amount of research. It will help you determine the style, the language, the themes, the length of the book. If you're writing for children, you can't write the same way as if you're writing for adults, you know. So all of those things help, yeah? And you need to be committed to producing something of value in that genre, okay? So now, in line with this, Miriam asks in the chat, any advice about writing a memoir? So a memoir would fall within nonfiction, okay? Would fall within nonfiction because you're writing a real life story. And a memoir is different from an autobiography in the sense that an autobiography covers the full scope of your life, while a memoir is focusing on a specific part of your life, okay? And your question is, should it be written in past tense? Yes, it should be written in past tense because the events that you're talking about already happened. In terms of tenses, my simple advice to you would be, write it as it is. Simply be true to the events. If it's something that already happened, write about it in past. If it's something that's currently happening, you write about it in present continuous. If it's something that happens, right? So it has a regular frequency. It's present, but it also happens. You write about it in present tense, but you write it as something that, yes, it's happened before, it happened, it's happening, but also continues to happen, right? So simply think about the event logically and, write about it in that sense. I mean, if you gave birth, you gave birth. If you're giving birth, you're giving birth. If you're going to give birth, you're going to give birth, right? So the tense simply follows the sequence of the event as at the time that you're writing the book. Okay? I don't know if that was your only question to do with memoirs, but that's your specific question. So that's it. You write it in past. But there are probably things in the memoir that are currently happening. Just be faithful to the event as it is happening in real life. So who are you writing for? Another key thing to note, who are you writing for? And what will they gain from reading your book? Yeah, many times we get caught up in our stories. We get caught up in just speaking. We're intrigued by our own stories naturally. But we seldom get out of ourselves to think, actually, what will people gain from this? If you think about what people will gain from reading your book, you're likely to write a better book than if you don't think about that. Yeah. So what are their aspirations and interests, the people that you're writing for? What's their age range? Remember how I said you can't write for a child the same way you're writing for an adult? Just like the same way you can't speak to a child the same way you're speaking to an adult in real life. It's communication. A book is a form of communication. So you would do the same thing. Yeah. I see we are 100. I know that we've reached our cap, but this meeting is being recorded and I'll share it. So what's their age range? What are their pains? Okay. What's their age range? What are their pains? And how are you helping them resolve that? So now that we know exactly what we're writing about, the next question is, how do you get the writing done? Okay. I think that's going to be useful and that's going to help you a lot is writing an outline. Okay. We talked about nonfiction and fiction. So if you have a nonfiction book, it's simple. Simply list the main theme and then list the sub-themes within that. I like to use the example of writing about marriage because all of us are familiar with marriage in one way or another, whether we are inside it or outside it, right? So marriage as a main theme has under it different sub-themes. So it has the before the marriage, yeah? It has the courting, then it has the preparation for marriage, then it has the, so you're a newlywed, what are some of the challenges you're facing? Maybe you talk about intercourse, you talk about living together. Another sub-theme would be, you can think, maybe we can make this interactive. What are some of the sub-themes you can think about within the main theme of marriage? Anyone wants to share? You can type also in the chat. Yes, I'll share the presentation. I'll share the recording so it will have within the presentation, but I can also share the presentation. No worries. Yes, Kameza, Grace, in-laws, love, family, managing conflict, compromise, children, how Banange, the person who says how to deal with the in-laws, Banange. The in-laws are good people. They don't need to be dealt with. But yeah, I understand what you mean. Parenting, infidelity, his friends, how to best communicate, communication, you see? So all of these are compatibility, house managers. All of these are within the sub-themes. So you would write them down, okay? You would write them down, then you would arrange them in a sequence that makes sense, okay? Arrange them in a sequence. Of course, courting cannot come after talking about sex, for instance, right? Because our assumption is courting, sex is within the marriage and the courting is before the marriage. So you would arrange it in a sequence that makes sense, and you ask yourself, does it flow? And review and adjust where need be, If you're writing about finances, you might want to write about getting the income before talking about saving the income, because sequence, one follows the other. And it makes more sense that way. So so you would organize it in a way that flows, in a way that makes sense. Okay, that's what you do. So after you've written down your topics, now you're sort of set to start. Your sub themes, you're sort of set to start. For fiction, it's a little bit more complex, in the sense that you need to think about the characters. So you need to think about characterization, because you see, for fiction, you are setting up a world. You are literally constructing a world, okay? A world that doesn't exist. And so for fiction, you need to think about the characters that are going to take part in this story, the context, so where is the story taking place, and the plot. What's the plot? Okay, what's happening what's the main point of the story? What's going to happen at the beginning? What's going to happen in the middle? What's going to happen in the end? So arrange the events in the desired sequence into chapters and ask yourself again, does it flow? So your outline will have a beginning, middle, and end. So you'll have some topics at the beginning, which will tell us how everything starts, which will give us some exposition, some background information. They'll set a firm base for our book. Then you'll have the middle. The middle takes up, let's say, about 60 to 70%. So let's say you have, in your beginning, you have, so let's split it equally. Maybe you have 20% in your beginning, not equally, 20% in your beginning, 20% chapters of your beginning plot, like your beginning topics, and then let's say 70% of the main meat, main events, main topics. So things like sexual intimacy would go in the middle. Things like dealing with in-laws would go in the middle. The heavy stuff, it's matter, it's lots of matter. And then you would end the book, maybe the last 10%, with the conclusion of the matter, where you sort of wrap up everything in the book, and say and speak about just your heart for the reader. Like, this is what I want you to take away ultimately, after discussing all of this. Okay. Find the writing time and place. You know your house, so you know your nice spots, the places that you like to sit at, the places where you focus better. It's nice when you have a targeted time and place. Say I write at 6 a.m. in the study room. That, it helps to trigger, once you get seated in that place at that time, you're set to write. Okay. Mark the dates in your calendar. Incorporate a targeted date to send your work to your editor. This thing, I think that sometimes writers are truly unfair to editors. You think that the only person that needs time is you, the writer. And so you send your work to the editor a week to the deadline. No matter how good the editor is, they're not going to give you their best in terms of quality, because they too need to take the time. You see, an editor is reading word for word. An editor is processing the thoughts that you have put. So they're trying to make sense of the thoughts that have come from your mind. That's not an easy task, right? And they're not only thinking about you, the writer, they're thinking about the consumer. And so they're doing their best to make sure that there is a proper interface between you and the consumer, and that interface is your book. And so they're doing everything that they can do to give you a quality product. And so if you don't give them time to do your book well, you can't blame the editor at the end of the day. Yeah. And so seek accountability. I think that's worked for me for years now with the people that I've worked with, is accountability groups. If you can get into small groups of accountability, you can also use your assessment groups for accountability. Just start a list, like everyone set a word count target that all of you stick to. Everyone is supposed to write a minimum of 500 words per day. And then you just, every single day, everyone takes that they've written, accountability will take you far. Yeah. So this is what I'm going to, this is the second last slide, and then we'll have questions after the last slide. Okay. I've also seen the questions in the chat. Thank you so much. I'm going to respond to each and every one of them. Okay. So what does a good book look like? Okay. It has a strong and clear main message. That's the ideas. The ideas are the foundation, as you can see in our little diagram here of a house. The ideas are the foundation. You don't see the background work of the ideas, but they're the foundation on which the entire book sits. The organization has to be good. That's what we call structure. You'll be marked on structural editing. And so, structure, have a good structure, easy flow of story, good overall structure. If you're not in Harvest Institute, don't worry about what I'm saying, deadlines marked. Of course, now your deadlines are self-imposed, okay? Your deadlines are self-imposed, but still, this is a good yardstick to judge yourself by, because the principles are the same. So the organization is like the floor plan of the house. How do you move through the house? It's the same way you move through your book. Is it easy to move through your book? The voice. Have you used an appropriate style and language for your audience? Remember what I talked about. You can talk to children the same way you talk to adults. And the voice is represented here by the users of the house, okay? The people. Then the word choice. The word choice is represented by the sun, because its color, its brightness. Use some different words. Don't only say beautiful. The girl was beautiful. She was beautiful. She was beautiful. She was beautiful. She was beautiful. Variety. There are many ways to say beautiful. Okay. Are your words appropriate for your audience? If you're writing to kids, maybe you don't want to say things like she was, I don't know. You don't want to complicate it, okay? The point is you don't want to use vocabulary that's, that's not appropriate for your audience. Natural. It needs to be natural to you. Now, don't go looking for the most complicated things in the world because you want to look like right? Don't do that. Let it be natural. Let it be simple. Let it be concise and colorful. Okay. And the sentence fluency is represented by clouds, because clouds just flow naturally. Okay. And then we're also talking about, so within sentence fluency, we're looking at rhythm and flow of sentences, style, variety. And then we also have conventions. Conventions are the roof. After you've written everything, you need to cover the house well. So we're talking about grammar and other writing rules. Many people make the mistake of thinking that a good book equals good grammar. That's not true. You can actually have really great grammar and have a really bad book because you've said nothing of value to anyone, right? So a good book does not equal good grammar. And if you are wise in choosing an editor, you will choose someone who will not just help you, okay, grammar and other writing rules. And then finally, presentation. So presentation is really the add-on. It's the +1, okay? We have 6 main characteristics of a good book. That's ideas, organization, voice, word choice, sentence fluency, and conventions. And then presentation is the +1. You can cook a really good meal, but if you don't serve it on a nice plate, it might not be appetizing, you know? That's why in 5-star restaurants, they take a lot of time in plating, you know? Plating, are there 5-star restaurants? Let me stick to what I know, just excellent restaurants. They take care to plate the food well because the presentation matters. So finally, this is not very, it is comprehensive. So what's the process like? Decide what I've told you, you know, decide how you're going to write, what you're going to write. All the things that we've discussed fall within the right, okay? After you've written, have at least 2, allow for at least 2 rounds of editing. At least 2 rounds of editing, meaning the book goes to your editor the first time, they go through it, they send it back to you, okay? With comments, questions, observations, notes for improvement. And you're supposed to act on those notes for improvement and send it back to the editor. And then the editor does another round. So you must have a minimum of 2 rounds of editing for a good book, okay? And there's a cost there, yeah? So the cost depends on the person you're working with. Then there's a cost, the cost depends on the person you're working with, but I've seen, generally speaking, the minimum is 500,000, no matter who you're working with. I think the minimum is 500,000. I've not met serious editors who charge less than 500 in the minimum for a book. So, of course, other editors are much more expensive than that. But I think if you get an editor who is, you know, unless it's a free book and they're doing it for you for free and it's a favor, that's a different scenario. But if the editor is charging you like 200, 300K, either the person is really good and they don't know their worth and they don't know what they can do and they don't know the extent of the work, or the person actually doesn't know what they're doing, truthfully speaking, yeah? And so they don't know the scope of the work, and that's why they're charging you very low. So then after doing the 2 rounds of editing, proofread. Even you proofread your book. Yeah, proofread, right? Proofread. Let the editor also proofread, and you also proofread. You can also give some people to proofread. You know, proofreading is really just checking for mistakes and checking for things that maybe the editor missed or you missed, or, you know, so proofread. And then after you're done, you're sure you have a good book, you're sure you're ready, typeset. There's a cost to typesetting. Typesetting is sometimes called layout, yeah? Sometimes called layout, whereby you lay out the book the way it will be printed in hard copy, okay? So that is not done in Microsoft Word. It requires design software. And so graphic designers know how to do this. Not all graphic designers. You need to look for a typesetter that actually lays out books. And then you can get an ISBN at any stage, okay? Even like now, if you're sure about your topic and your title, you can go ahead and apply for an ISBN. But this would ideally be the stage at which you get your ISBN, okay? To get an ISBN, just go to the National Library of Uganda. It is opposite Buganda Road Primary School. Apply. You can download the form online. fill it in, take it there, having paid the fee in the bank, take it there with your payment slip, have them generate for you an ISBN. It does not take long, maybe a day or two, okay? And then finally, after you've typeset and you have your ISBN and everything, the typesetting is done with the ISBN, your book has been laid out well, then you think about printing. There's a stage that I missed out in the middle here. That's the book cover design. You can start your book cover design at any stage of your writing, okay? Yes, the ISBN is the International Standard Book Number. So at any point of your writing journey, you can design your book cover for as long as you have a clear vision for your book cover. So have a clear vision. Don't expect your designer to just generate options, right? Give them some design direction. That means you're going to need to take the time to look through different books, and look at different things, okay? So for those who would like to do this further, I'm doing some free classes. Otherwise, the world awaits your book. Go ahead and do it. All right. So let me tackle those questions. Starting with the questions in the chat. Okay. I'm just scrolling back up. If I miss your question, please feel free to just put up your hand and reiterate it in case I've missed it. So if I go back up, I think, yes, okay. So Nelson Kalema Nelson, yes. How does one protect loved ones from unintended hurtfulness that might ensue from the publication? Make it fictional? No. My advice would be that you write tactfully, okay? So if you're writing, for instance, about being raped by a relative, okay? You don't have to mention the relative's name if you want to protect them, yeah? Of course, that should have been reported, police case. We're not getting into that right now. We're focusing on the book, right? So if your purpose, I'm giving an extreme example because it brings out the sensitivity of this matter, okay? And so you don't have to write the person's name. You can just say a loved one that you respected, did this and this and it affected you in this and this way, okay? My advice would be that you just be tactful about it and be wise about how you put in the details. Because usually sharing a story from authenticity is better than trying to mask it in fiction. When you try to fictionalize a real life story, it shows, it shows. And it's actually very hard for you to write a very good book because you're so attached emotionally to the events of this fiction story. Unless, of course, it's not your story and you're fictionalizing someone else's story, which you're not emotionally attached to, yeah? Then you're able to do that well. But if you are actually, it's your story, you're attached to it, I would say just tell your story, but tell it wisely, yeah? Okay, how can you get to me for more guidance? I'm going to share my contacts and my email in the chat. How does one protect loved ones? That's the one that I've just finished. Access your presentation. Yes, I'll share the presentation and the presentation and the recording. How do I write? Charity for Kenya asks, how do I write about an area of expertise or expertise, an area I have practiced for 10 plus years? For example, sales, customer experience, without mentioning the company that I am working for, or am I supposed to seek permission from my workplace to use actual figures and examples? Yes. If you're going to use actual figures and examples from your workplace, then seek permission by all means. Yeah, because you don't want to enter into problems when you're published and now your employer is asking why you have, exposed certain information. And I know also within your work contract, you're supposed to respect the confidentiality of the documents within that place. So you would need to ask for permission, first of all. Secondly, the other option to go around this is to not expose private information. Okay, so if you want to talk about sales, we would need to go through, say, why are you writing about sales? What's the main message? What's the main goal? Because you don't have to write certain details, and yet you can still make the point, okay, that you want to make. So that would also be a matter of tact and skill, whereby you can actually write, you can even mention the name, especially if you're casting the company in a positive light. No one dislikes positive publicity. They only have a problem with negative publicity. So if it's positive publicity, that would be okay, yeah, as long as you are writing about it to the extent that you're able to, without exposing, without exposing negatively, or without breaking any contractual laws that you're under. Yeah, but seeking permission is a very good place to start, if indeed that is the book cannot do without those details. Then did you select? Okay, sorry. Is it okay to send material to the editor piecemeal, or is it advisable? It's advisable to send the complete book. Okay, it's advisable to send the complete book. However, it's also advisable for you to work with your editor right from the beginning. So if you work with your editor right from the beginning, where they guide you through the general direction of the book. Some editors might choose to charge you extra for this, by the way, please note. If you work with an editor from the beginning, and they are guiding you through, it's easier for them to then help you through as you write. So you would then be sending you could send in your work to them at different stages of the writing, so that they can check that you're on track. Yeah, but it wouldn't be for editing purposes. It would be for them to just check that you're on track. But the true editing happens when you hand them a complete book, because that's when they're able to help you better, restructure the work better, guide you better. Okay. Another question. Contact and email I'm going to share. Next question. To what extent are editors versed with different genres, different voices in writing, or is it called writing style? And is that something to consider when looking for an editor? Yes, it is something to consider when looking for an editor. Some editors do not edit, say, poetry. Some editors don't edit. In short, some editors choose the genres that they're going to edit. And so you will, it's something to have a discussion with, with your editor about. If you want to do fiction, then you need to talk to them about it. Personally, there are stages if you are doing the course, School of Leadership, if you're writing a fiction book, there are times in the year that I cannot take you on. Like if you're writing a fiction book, you have to approach me now at the beginning of the year. Because you see, because you're setting up a whole fictional, context, place, characterization, plot, you have significantly more work than someone who is doing nonfiction. And so if you come to me like in the last quarter of the year, I really honestly cannot work with you because I didn't start with you. Yeah. And so it's personally for me, it's late. Yeah. So different people have different rules about the different genres also. Also, for instance, I choose not to edit poetry. Why? Because poetry is very technical. I write poetry myself, and I know the different, like subgenres even within poetry itself, and poetry is a whole world of its own. Yeah. So I choose not to edit poetry. Not that I can't, but I think it needs certain type of technique and experience, and so yes, different editors have different choices. They might be well versed with the genres, but they might also have different choices, and but every editor should be versed with the different genres, the different voices in writing, the different styles. Yeah. ISBN in full has already been answered. On average, how much will one have to part with for the whole book writing process? So for the whole book writing process, it will depend on your pocket, number one, because different editors charge different things. But what I can tell you is, for editing, don't budget less than 500,000 Ugandan shillings, not less than, okay? And that's really at the lower end. For typesetting, you could say, let's say, don't budget less than 300,000 for typesetting, for laying out the book. The way your book is laid out actually really, really matters. Don't minimize it, okay? And it's a one-time cost. The book layout cost is a one-time cost. You lay it out nicely once and for all, okay? For a print copy, layout for an ebook is a whole other story, but layout for a print copy, okay? And so if you want to have it both in e-copy and book and printed, those are two different costs you need to talk to your book typesetter about. So if not less than 300,000, then let's say for the printing, depending on the size of your book, printing per copy could range anywhere from, let's say, 7,000 for a relatively smaller book, 7,000 a book to 15, 20,000, yeah, to let's say 20,000 per book, yeah. So 7,000 to 20,000 per book, that would be the range that you're looking at. 7,000 if your book is little, and like 20,000 if it's really heavy and has lots of pages. So yeah, that's the range. So most of you will fall around 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 per copy print. Also, it depends on your typesetting. If you use a very big font, but remember also, for Harvest Institute, you're not supposed to have less than 70 pages. So whatever you do, you can't say you're going to reduce your font so much so that you have a smaller cost of printing. Okay, so that's the range. Then for the book cover design, really it ranges. Let's say for book cover design, budget for about, start not less than 200,000. Okay, you can get for less than that, depending on the designer that you get, but budget for about 200,000 and above. Okay, I think that gives you just a rough range. And the final thing truly will depend on you. And if you're in Uganda, we have NASA Road. People actually print there. Very many people there. Most books are, if not all, but most books are printed there. Thank you very much. Okay, what would be your advice on choosing a good editor? Have a discussion with them about what you're, okay. That's a really good question, actually. Maureen Amutori asked, what would be what's the advice when choosing a good editor? So, number one, I think that when you have a discussion with your editor, the questions that they ask you are a good indication of whether they're a good editor or not. Okay? Asking you about your topic, about your genre, about your theme, topic, general theme, what you want to achieve, what stage of writing are you at. So generally the questions that they ask about the content of your book and your direction. That's number one. Number two, look, at their track record. It's usually good to look at their track record. If you can't find any of their books that they've edited online, or if no one referred you to them, meaning you really don't know actually if they can edit or not, ask them for books they've edited. Okay? Ask them for books they've edited. Let them give you titles. If you can access those books, read them, check them. Okay? So that will be your main way to see whether you have a good editor or not. Ask them for their track record. Yeah. Like, of course, ask it in a diplomatic and nice way, because I mean, if you've approached me for editing and you're asking me, prove to me your track record, that's not very, you approached me first of all, right? So at least just ask, may I please know some of the titles of the books you've edited before, or could you refer me to the people that you've edited for before, just so that I can check? Or before you even approach the editor, just do your own background search of who have they edited for. Yeah, I think that will be helpful, and that will help you gauge. Okay, is it okay to do research about the title and the topic of the book I'm writing? Yes, the answer is yes. It's not okay. You're expected to do research about the title and topic of the book you're writing about. It's part of the process. Okay. How to access it? I've already talked. Costs involved for the ISBN. Julie Amoli asks, help know more about the International Standard Book Number, how to access it, and the costs involved. You get it from the National Library, opposite to Buganda Road Primary School. It's 30,000 shillings. There's a discount if you're getting many, but really that's the main thing, 30,000 shillings for one ISBN. How key is it to get the title of the book before writing? It's not key at all. You can even get the title after you're finished writing. And by the way, don't be in a rush to get a title, okay? Because I see this happening a lot. People spend so much time on crafting their title and not enough time on the actual content of the book. Don't do that. Focus on the content and let the title be a result of the content, okay? So I would say the main thing you need to focus on is the theme, not the title, but the theme. The title and the theme can have the exact same title, can be the exact same thing, but I think the most important thing to focus on is the theme. And then you can craft the title when you're sure what you're writing about. The narrative affects the title. That's the answer. Can I use examples like Apostle Moses' stories in my book? Why not choose your own story if you're really competent and conversant in that topic you're writing about? That would be my advice. However, you can use examples from other authors, okay? You can use examples from other authors, but ensure that you're not plagiarizing. Yeah, to plagiarize is to take someone else's story and act like it's your own, or take someone else's content and act like it's your own. It's okay to refer and say, I read this in so and so's book. He said this and this and this. That's okay. It also helps when you reference other material. It also shows you've taken the time to do some research and wide reading. How about the people, the forward? Okay, the forward, first of all, is not written as FORWARD. It's not forward as in moving forward. It's a forward. It's a fast word. It's FOREWORD. Yes. So it's a forward. So for the forward, number one, it's not a must for you to have one. Okay. Only have one if it's necessary. Two, you need to get someone who is well versed in the topic that you're writing about. And then three, you need to get someone who you have a relationship with, so that they can also say something about you. And they can say something about you and about the book. How would you identify, David, from David, how would you identify a good editor? I've already answered that. Who are the editors that we can choose? Who share a list. That the HI will share a list with you. Okay. What's the average word count of each page you want to write? Say between 10,000. I think I've answered the word count already when I was addressing word count, and I'll share the recording. How do you make the book interesting that the readers will come or desire what comes next? That's a matter of your technical skills in writing and your storytelling skills. Okay, so that go and research on literary devices. Herbert, go and research on literary devices. It will help you a lot to figure out how to, spice up your writing. Is there a book writing word count template? Book writing word count template. No, there's no word count template. No, there's no template. You just need to know that you're going to target X number of words, and then you just open up a Microsoft Word document and start. There's no template, unless I misunderstood your question. All right. Thank you so much for the comments and for the thank yous. All right, I think I have answered. What's the difference between the title and the theme? The title is the book title, the one that will appear on your book cover, and the theme is the main message of the book. That's the difference. What advice from Hope? What advice do you give if I would like to break my book into short stories? So that one would be an issue. I think you would need an actual one-on-one conversation about that. Are you saying that you want to write a book of short stories? If you want to write a book of short stories, that's also possible. There are books like that. You can just go and check how are books like that written. Yeah. You can actually have a collection of stories in your book, a collection of short stories. So yes, it's possible, it's allowed. Yeah. And then the exact stories would be, I think, a thing you need to discuss with your editor to see if the stories actually flow into each other. All right. Thank you so much for the appreciation. Thank you. Oh, I think I have finished everything. Thank you so much for coming through in large numbers. I am grateful for you showing up, and I believe this has been helpful to all of you. And I wish you the best in your book writing journeys. See you on the other side of the book writing journey.